Good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night, so it's Halacha and Tanya. So the Halacha, I thought we are going to learn a little bit about taking care of one's health issues, and also in Shulchan Aruch, the same siman about not wasting and destroying objects for no reason at all. So, for instance, in what's called Shmiras Haguf, in taking care of your body, there's other dinim besides guarding your health. There's things that you're not supposed to do which are dangerous. For instance, if somebody has a roof that's used, is a biblical mitzvah to make a fence, a ma'akeh it's called, a fence around the roof. And why the Torah says that nobody, God forbid, should fall down and hurt themselves, or God forbid, die. The mic is a biblical mitzvah. The fence has to be at least 36 to 40 inches high. It's called 10 tvachim, because then at least the person won't fall off. According to the Rambam, many opinions, you even make a bracha on that mitzvah of building a fence, because it's a mitzvah that the Torah says, well, see, so it's a positive mitzvah. And obviously it's not a mitzvah connected to time, like time-bound mitzvahs, women are not obligated. So they're obligated, which means if a woman owns an apartment, a house, or whatever, and there is a fence, a roof that's usable, and people might get hurt, you have a biblical obligation to make a fence. But halacha says it's not only that. You're not allowed to have any dangerous things in your house without a protection. For instance, the classic example is, in the olden days, where did they get water from? They had a well, okay? So they would build, the well would be in the courtyard. So there was a din, you had to build a protection around the well that nobody should fall into the well. The same din applies, that you're not allowed to have anything dangerous in the house. If there's anything that somebody could, God forbid, fall and hurt themselves, it's a biblical obligation to make sure that that's taken care of, that people shouldn't, God forbid, hurt themselves. And in fact, you're not allowed to have, according to halacha, you're not allowed to have a very, it's called kelev ra, a dog that goes bites people. Whenever he sees people, they bite them. So all these things that could cause a danger in somebody's house, you have a biblical mitzvah to remove them. Now, there's another interesting question in halacha. Is a guy allowed to have a business that could pose a danger to himself? For instance, don't forget, the traveling of yesteryear was not like traveling today. People used to travel for business through forests, through deserts. It was a dangerous situation. The question is somebody allowed to have a business that causes them to travel a lot in a situation when it's dangerous? Are you allowed to have such a business? And halacha brings proofs from many authorities that you are allowed to have a business. Obviously, somebody should do whatever possible to minimize the dangerous situations. I'll give an example that just came up. I would mention somebody was from our show was just now in Israel, and then he went to Europe for a week in Rome. He said it's unbelievable, the anti-Semitism that's in Europe, all over Europe. It's terrible anti-Semitism. He told me that religious people, don't walk around there with a kippah, with a yarmulke. They'll wear a hat, but they won't do anything. He said it's dangerous, actually, for a Jew to walk. Now, there was a time, by the way, that one of the rabbis in Europe said people should not wear kippahs and not hats. That's a different story, because according to the Alter Rebbe, it's a biblical mitzvah to wear or to transgressing a negative biblical commandment if you don't wear a kippah. So that is a different story. Then you just can't say you go without a kippah, go without a head covering, because that Torah says you have to do. But people should not do things in any situation that could pose a danger to the person if it's not going against Torah. If it's going against Torah, it's a whole different story. So bottom line is, you're not allowed to have dangerous things in your house that people can get hurt. I'll give you an example. It says in halacha, if you build a staircase, okay, Now, sometimes you can have a staircase if you don't have the side railings, so to speak. Somebody can fall down the side. So then, according to halacha, you have an obligation to build a railing on the side because it's a dangerous situation. So it's not really Kabbalah. It's just a very simple, practical din. Anything that poses a danger in your house, you have a biblical obligation to take away that danger in whichever way possible. Whatever way thing could do. Now, in the same siman and Shulchan Aruch deals with that. Just like you have to be careful not to ruin your body. So the same thing. You're not allowed to waste anything. Okay, let me go back a second. In the same thing, because this could be a practical bit. A person is contrary to public belief, especially in the secular world. We do not belong to ourselves, not our bodies, not our souls. We belong to Hashem. Hashem lent us our soul and body to accomplish a mission of doing what Hashem created the world for, like we learned last week in Tanya, we'll learn this week again in Tanya, that there's a purpose why we're here. We do not own our body. This whole thing with the, abortion rights and this right, it's my body, I can do with my body whatever I want. That's completely against Torah. Our bodies don't belong to ourselves. Therefore, it's biblically forbidden for a person to hurt himself. It's biblically forbidden for a person to do damage to himself. I'll give you certain examples. There's a letter from the Rebbe. In other words, you can't just take a pin and stick yourself. You're not allowed to do that because you're hurting yourself. You're ruining yourself. And again, it's not our body that I can control and say, it's up to me. It's my business. It's Hashem's body. So somebody asked the Rebbe a question about little girls piercing the ears. Is a little girl allowed to pierce the ears? And there was a mistake in print. First, the letter came out. I remember when it happened. The Rebbe said no. But it was a mistake. The letter was misprinted. The Rebbe writes that a girl is allowed to pierce ears. And he says it's better maybe until they get a little bit older that they can understand and want to do it on their own. But the minute usually in the word, the Rebbe didn't say it's forbidden. The Rebbe says you're allowed to pierce ears. Why? He says the minimal pain that you get when you pierce is nothing compared to the pleasure and enjoyment that they have by having pierced ears. But I'll give you an example, and people are unaware of this. And cosmetic surgery, in order for somebody to do cosmetic surgery, no matter what it is, needs to be addressed to a Rav, and a Rav needs to rule that you're allowed to do cosmetic surgery. Now, to give you a few examples of this, somebody doesn't like, no Jew ever likes their nose, okay? It's a Jewish nose, they don't like it. So is a person allowed to do a nose job? The answer is, you must ask a shaila. Because I'll tell you what, in the contemporary responses, it speaks about this. Now, let's say, God forbid, okay? God forbid somebody was in a terrible accident and their face or parts of the body became deformed. Okay, so then that, according to almost all opinions, is you're allowed to do plastic surgery because there's psychological issues here that could be suicidal. And again, everything needs to be discussed with it up because there's a lot of details in all these types of things. I'm not going to say it's forbidden, but you just can't say a blanket statement that all cosmetic surgery is allowed. There's a question, what happens if a girl has an issue with a shidduch or a boy has an issue with a shidduch and it's really bothering them and they can't find the shidduch. So I'm not saying they're not allowed to do it. They probably would be allowed to do it. But a shaila needs to be asked. Again, why? Because our bodies don't belong to us. And therefore, surgery, in fact, there's an interesting response that Ramesha Feinstein, somebody asked the Shaila, are you allowed to donate, just to show how far it goes, are you allowed to donate blood? What's the question? You're sticking yourself with a needle and you're taking out blood that weakens you. And you're just not allowed to stick yourself with a needle. So if it's medicinal, you need to take a shot, that's a different story. But the question but I'm just saying it's brought up as a question in responsa. Are you allowed to donate blood? And the answer is yes, you could. Because the way it's done today is minimal pain. And again, the benefits definitely outweigh the minimal pain. And therefore, you would be allowed to do it. Even if it's not an emergency situation where somebody needs the blood, they need a transfusion and you're donating blood right away. Or he discusses even if somebody wants to do it for money. There are people that donate blood, they make money from it. So again, he also writes in that case, it would be allowed to be done. Because again, it's minimal pain the way it's done today. And the benefits definitely outweigh the problem of getting, stuck with a needle and things like that. Okay. Okay. Now there's another thing like this. Just like you're not allowed to damage yourself, it's biblically forbidden to damage property. Not only your property, even your property. Somebody else's property, for sure, you're not allowed to waste. There's an issue in the Torah. The Torah speaks about cutting down fruit trees. It's called baltashchis. Leisashchis eitza. You're not allowed to ruin things. Okay? So there's a din in the Torah. You're not allowed to ruin things. Somebody breaks a vessel. Just breaks it. It takes money and throws it into the garbage. Or, I'll give you more practical examples in a second. In all these cases, it's forbidden to do. Why? Because you're wasting something that Hashem created. I'll give you an example, and this is something that I mentioned it in the past, but we need to be more aware of it and to teach our kids an awareness of this. And again, it's not the issue of the money. It's the issue of wasting something for no reason at all. I'll give you two examples that you see very often in shul, and you see this really all over the place. Okay? Somebody takes a cup, they want to drink. They take a cup, they know they're going to drink more. They take a cup, take a drink, throw out the cup. A minute later, they take another cup. Like, what are you wasting cups for? Why are we wasting cups? Why are you wasting tissues? Somebody needs a paper towel to dry their hands. So it's funny the way you watch it and you wonder, what are these people thinking? You wash your hands, okay? So right away they pull down 5 paper towels and they go like this and they throw them out. You just wasted, realistically speaking, at least 3 paper towels for no reason at all. And again, it's not a question of the money. For some people say, who cares? It doesn't cost anything. You're not allowed to waste anything that Hashem created. If something still works, why do we have to throw it out? Everything today is disposable. But as long as it works, we should do it. There was a story, I believe I mentioned it, but it's a remarkable lesson that Rebbe teaches us in his personal conduct, life lessons. The Rebbe's car was getting old. It worked, but it was getting older. So some people got together and bought the Rebbe a brand new car, and it was custom made that the Rebbe should be able to not to bend so much when he got into the car that would hurt a little bit. They made it a very, balbatish, a beautiful car. And everybody's waiting outside. I wasn't there then, but I saw videos of it. I was already here in California. And everybody's waiting, all the bachim waiting outside. What's going to be on the Rebbe going into the new car? The Rebbe walked outside 770, went down to the car, and he says, obviously he spoke in Yiddish, but he said, what's this? So the Rebbe's driver, the Rebbe's secretary said to him, it's a new car. The Rebbe said, what's wrong with the old car? What's wrong with the old car? And they said, they bought you a new car. The Rebbe said, what's wrong with the old car? The Rebbe refused. You see on the video, the Rebbe refused to go into the new car. He waited on the sidewalk until they brought back the old car. What did the Rebbe teach us? Something's still good. Why are you throwing it out for? Why are you wasting it? Is it in the Torah? Hashem created something. You have to utilize it to the fullest extent. So you don't just waste things. It's a biblical mitzvah. You're not allowed to throw out money. You're not allowed to ruin objects. You're not allowed to waste objects. All these things are actually part of a biblical mitzvah that you're not allowed to do. And then you have an issue with chopping down fruit trees. That's a separate issue in the Torah. It's biblically forbidden to chop down a fruit tree unless if it's under certain conditions. Like it's not bearing a normal amount of fruit. You need the place to build. It's in your backyard. You want to build a guest house, a swimming pool, or you need it to build. Or it's darkening the windows in the house. So you lose. In those cases, you're allowed to cut down the fruit tree. But according to that's interesting. According to Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, in addition to not being that is biblically forbidden to chop down a good fruit tree, it's also, he says it's sakona. It's a danger to just say we don't take haircuts on Rosh Chodesh, and because of sakona, there's a lot of things. Rabbi Yehuda Chassid said, "I sakona. You don't polish your shoes the day you go on a trip." These are all things that he writes sakona. I don't know what that means. Danger. I don't know what that means. It's not clear what he means with the word it's sakana. But many opinions hold that even when halacha says you're allowed to cut down a fruit tree, it's still sakana if you do it. Now, the Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch, when he talks about this din of not cutting down the fruit tree in the last chelik of Shulchan Aruch, the Rebbe writes it's sakana unless if you do it in one of these permissible ways, which means the Rebbe holds clearly that if it's blocking your light or you need the place to build or whatever, or it's not producing the normal amount of fruit, so then halachically you're allowed to chop it down, and it's not even called sakana. There are other opinions that say an interesting idea what to do, that if you need to chop down this fruit tree in a permissible way, if you want to do it even better, you should sell the tree to a non-Jew who's going to chop it down. So you take, you give him $1 gift, and then he buys the tree from you for $1, which you're allowed to. Things connected to the ground are acquired with money. It doesn't matter how much money. So he can give you $1. He can buy the tree. Now the tree becomes his. So then he's not chopping down your tree as your agent. He's chopping down his tree. So some poskim right out, Rebbe doesn't bring down that thing, which means he probably holds you don't need to do it. But there are opinions that say that would be a better way of doing it, because then at least it's not even your tree, it's the non-Jewish tree. Okay, I'm going to come eventually more detailed about health issues for ourselves. What halacha says you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. What do you do under certain cases of health? There's a lot from the Rebbe about this stuff. So I'm just going, the next thing over here is, it's biblically, it's an argument in the Gemara, but the halacha is biblical. It's called Sar Balei Chayim. You're not allowed to torture animals. You're not allowed to torture animals. Again, in the Talmud, the Gemara, some opinions say it's rabbinic, some people say it's biblical. The halacha is it's biblical. It's biblically forbidden to torture animals. Which means, according to halacha, by the way, rodeos, bullfights, all that type of stuff could be a very, very big question that is biblically forbidden, because the animals are being tortured. Now, are the animals in SeaWorld tortured at the whole thing of the circuses? That's a whole another issue within itself. Are they considered being tortured? Are they not considered being tortured? That could be debatable amongst the experts. But I'm just saying it's biblically forbidden, even if the animal's not yours. if the animal's an animal off the street or belongs to anybody, a neighbor, a non-Jew, it doesn't really matter. You're not allowed to. Now, when is it allowed? If the animal is bothering you. I'll give you a simple example. You see a spider, okay? The spider is making you very nervous, or a mouse, a rat, a cockroach, you name it. So halachically, killing it is not called sar bali chayim. It's not called torturing the animal. You're killing it. You can't just go around killing bugs. It's forbidden just to go around killing bugs because you see a bug in the street. It's not bothering you, and it's not, nothing just to go kill it. You're killing a creation that Hashem made. That particular ant or the spider, or there's a famous story in the Gemara. The Gemara tells a story that David HaMelech asked Hashem, why in the world did you create a spider? Such a nuisance. Make spider webs. It's a pain, So Hashem said to him, I swear that you will be saved by a spider. Spider will save your life. And then, then you'll figure out why I created a spider. Later on, when David HaMelech was running away from Shaul, in the Haftarah we read this past Shabbos, Machar Chodesh, it says that Shaul was afraid that Jonathan wanted to give the kingdom to David, and he said, he gave a death sentence on David's head. That he said, bring him to me, I'm going to kill him. David ran away with Jonathan's help, and there's a whole story that David HaMelech was running away from Shaul. Shaul was out to kill him. And David HaMelech hid in a cave. And Shaul was not far behind him with his men. Hashem made a spider come, and it wove a web on the entrance of the cave. When Shaul and his men came to the cave, Shaul said to the men, go inside the cave and see if he's there. So one of the men said to Shaul HaMelech, Your Majesty, he can't be in the cave because there's a full web. If he went into the cave, the web would be broken. He's not in there. So Shaul HaMelech says, you're right, and they went on further. So David HaMelech realized that this little spider is actually the thing that saved his life. So therefore, you're not like, if something is bothering you, then halachically you can kill it. If it's not bothering you, then you're not allowed to kill it. And you're not allowed to torture an animal. But they write, what happens if for parnasa, you want to go hunting? You want to go hunting for parnasa. So that halacha is interesting. To hunt for sport, according to Torah, you're not allowed to do. Because you're torturing an animal for what? For your enjoyment, you're torturing an animal. If you sell animals and you go hunting, and then halachically you would be allowed because it's the sake of parnasa. But you can't go for sport. Do we not kill spiders because of that story? No, you're allowed to kill spiders in spite of that story. But again, only if it's bothering you. If you see a spider on a tree outside in the street, it makes a web. I just saw a few of them recently in a tree. The spider made a beautiful, beautiful web. It was unbelievably beautiful. You're not allowed to go to kill the spider. Why? It's not bothering you. Time to kill something. It says in Svarim even more. It says if you're walking, people do this subconsciously, and you should be aware of it not to do it, unless it's for a reason. People walk by a bush, you're walking, talking, going for a walk. And people, you just rip a leaf off a bush, or whatever. A flower is different, so if you want to keep it. But stam, to rip a leaf off a tree or a flower off the tree or the bush for no reason, it says in Svarim, it's not a living, it's still a living thing that Hashem created. You can't kill anything, destroy anything Hashem made. But it says in Svarim, you shouldn't do that. you shouldn't go and pull off a leaf from a tree or for no reason. You're taking flowers. By the way, you have to be careful. If you don't have permission, you're stealing, which is even worse. People go, you see this sometimes, people are walking in the street and they walk by somebody's house and they cut down a flower. To be very careful with that because it's called stealing in English. In any language, it's called stealing. You need to get permission to do it. If you get permission to do it, then that's fine. But you can't cut a flower from somebody else's tree. Even if you're not destroying it, you're going to take it home and make a beautiful vase. But nevertheless, it's still called stealing. You're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to destroy anything for no reason whatsoever. Okay. Now I'll give you another example. To the extent it says what happened if horses are pulling a wagon and they're having a hard time on a high mountain, it's a mitzvah to help the person whose horse and buggy it is, even if it's a non-Jew, to help them push it up or whatever it is in any way whatsoever, because the animal is suffering. Now, there's an interesting question. Does Tzar Balei Chaim apply to a person also? Am I allowed to torture a person, or is it biblically forbidden? So the Rashba holds that even by a person it is. Some people disagree, or they probably didn't see the Rashba. The Rashba was a Rishon. But according to practical halacha, Tzar Balei Chaim applies by a person also. So I'll give you an example. It's question, in India, they have these wagons that sometimes animals lead them and sometimes people lead them. It's not so simple halachically to say that you're allowed to go in that wagon, which is being pulled by a person. Because it might be Tzar Balei Chaim. By an animal, there's much less Tzar Balei Chaim because animals are stronger, they're trained to do it, so it's not an issue so much. By a person, it could be a shaila. For instance, you're not allowed to tie the feet of a pigeon or an animal that they have pain. In other words, they have these chicken races, you tie their feet and you torture them and then they run and you bet on it, all that. All that stuff according to Torah is forbidden because it's Tzar Balei Chaim. It's torturing the animal. And all those things would be not allowed in any way whatsoever. Okay, we're going to go to Tanya.
Rabbi Shusterman?
Yeah.
What if there's some small bugs in your house, and these are the kind that eat your clothes?
The what?
They eat your clothes, like moths, little moths.
You're allowed to destroy them. Mm-hmm. They're bothering you. If a bug or an animal bothers you, you're allowed to kill it. But just to go around killing bugs for the fun of it, you're not allowed to.
Of course.
Or to capture animals just to torture them. You're not allowed to do those things.